Hello again and welcome back. So in the last one we set up our inventory system so we could start picking up items and adding them to our inventory, but we don't really have a way to check that now. So let's make our menu widget so we can check what we've picked up. So to do this, first thing we're going to want to do is create an actual input event for opening the menu. So in the project settings, which if you don't have open, you can go to edit, project settings, boom. So under the engine, you'll find this input, just like we did the interact. Let's add one more menu. I'm going to make that M on mine. You can do whichever. That's going to work for me. So now down in the blueprints folder, I'm going to open that up. And in the HUD elements where we added the player HUD, I'm going to create two more widgets. So user interface, widget blueprint. This one is going to be menu underscore W. And then I'm going to create one more. This one's going to be an inventory icon underscore W. So this will be the menu that displays all the information, and this will be the actual individual item buttons. So let's work on this one first. So I'm going to drag this all the way to the top, scroll in a little bit. Now the first thing, anytime I create a widget, first thing I do is over in the hierarchy, I right click and I wrap it with the scale box and the size box. Just like I said last time, anything you put this on, it'll make sure that it stretches and scales appropriately. So with those wrapped, I'm going to go to the size box. I'm going to do a width and height override. I go 1920 by 1080, but any aspect ratio that's 16 by 9 or makes it fit that box, that'll work. So you could do that one, be the same. I always do this one. So the first thing we want to do is we need to drag out another canvas panel. So we don't have to wrap this one. Since it's inside the children of this one, it's automatically wrapped. Now I'm going to anchor this to the right, because this is where I'm going to have my inventory screen, because over here is going to be where we have like the player stats and the equipment screen and all that later on. So I'm going to reset its offsets, position X, position Y. The alignment is basically how it reacts to its anchor. So if it's 0, 0, it's to the right and below it. But if I set it to 1 and 1, then it's to the left and above it. So I want this one's to the left. So I want it to be 0.5 on the Y and 1 on the X, so that it's on the left, but it's halfway. Actually, I'm going to set it 1.1, so it's offset a little bit from the side, maybe 1.2. Play around with it, see what you like. For the size X, I'm going to go, okay, maybe 1.1 after all. Actually, almost 1.05. That'd be aight. And then 600 here also, and that'll give us a nice little window for it. Let me check my notes, see what the ones I set up in the last one was. Oh, 750 by 600. Alright, well, let's see. Alright, so on the X, I'm going to make it 750 by 600. But like I said, you can play around with values, figure out what works best for you. So with that there, I'm going to exit that out. I'm going to put an image, drop it right on that canvas panel so that it automatically parents. I'm going to anchor it to the full thing because I want it to be, that's already offset. Just like that, and then pick whatever color you like. I'm going to go with kind of this grayish color. And once that's on there, then we want to search the palette for a uniform grid panel. This is what the button that we created, the inventory icon, it's going to go into this grid panel that'll automatically establish like its location and size in comparison with everything else. So we'll drop that right onto that canvas panel also, and also anchor it to the whole thing. Offset right and bottom back down to 0. And then we want to rename this just so it's easier to work with later on. I'm going to call it inventory panel, and I'm going to make sure that it is a variable. That way we can affect its parameters and add things to it, all that jazz. So with that done, now we need to work on the little icon. So let's work on the icon real quick. And just like last time, I'm going to wrap it with a scale box and a size box. But instead of setting this one to 1020 or 1920 by 1080, since I want it to be a square button, I'm going to give them the same value. Words are hard. So this way it's a square button, and it'll look just like that. So I'm going to compile that, and I'm going to drop a button right there on it. I'm going to set its Z order to 1, and then I'm going to anchor it to the whole thing, because this is what's going to hold the information. Like I said, words are hard. This is what's going to have the item image. So we want to drag out one text right to the middle, because this will be the item name. Rename it in the details panel and make sure that it is a variable so we can alter it as well. And then you'll want to adjust its font so that it looks the way you want it to. If you leave it like this, it's going to be so small you can't read it. What did I set the last? You got to set it something ridiculously high for it to actually look right. So this one I have set to 120 on the font size. Oh, and just to show you what that looks like actually in play. Did I not click it? There we go. So just to show you what that looks like. So when the menu's open, that's what 120 looks like. So to give you a little frame of reference. Alright. So I'm going to set that same thing, 120. I'm going to drag out one more text block, and I'm going to anchor it to the canvas panel because the button can only have one child widget, but I like for it to be the text because that way it's centered right on it. And that's generally where you would want the name. So the canvas panel, I did put that at text block. Okay, yeah. I'm going to set its Z order to 1, and then its offset is going to be to the bottom right this time. I'm going to set its offsets to 0 and its alignment to 1 and 1. And then I'm going to compare my notes real quick one more time, just to make sure, because I like the way this one turned out. So I had it offset 1 and 0. Okay, interesting. Size 100. Alright, I don't know why. I'm going to leave it just like that. But I'm going to set the size to 100. Oh, that's probably why. Size it to content. Oh, that looks good. I'm going to set it to the content just to 0. And I'm going to make it light. Yeah, it looks... Almost set it off to the side just a little bit. Like I said, just kind of play around, figure out what looks good for you. What this is going to be the quantity of items in the slot. So we're going to rename this one to item quantity and make it a variable. So now our button is set up, but we need to tell it what to do when it's created. So inside the graph, which right up here you can switch back and forth between the designer and the graph. So I'm going to get rid of that and that. Now over here on the side, we want to create a variable called item info. And this is going to be what tells the button what it's supposed to look like. So it's going to be that item info struct that we created in one of the previous episodes. Compile that real quick. And then we want to drag out our button. Get that. And then we want to set its style. Yeah, the top one. Like if you drag off, and I always get confused. The appearance. You want to set the appearance, not the... Hold that thought. I might be telling you wrong. I always get these confused. Oh. In style. Alright, alright. Which one is that? That's the wrong one. Yeah, it's the appearance one. Alright. So yeah, it's that first one, the set style, the one under appearance. We will hook that straight to the set style button. I'm going to set that above. And then the way we set this is we can drag out our item info. And I'm going to right click it and split the struct pin. Basically it takes this pin and breaks it into all the little variables inside of it. Just like that. So on the style, we can't hook this directly to it. We don't want to anyway, because we want it to have different things happen based on it, whether you're over the item or not. So off the in style, we're going to drag off and make button style. And this will give us to where we can set the normal, the hovered, the pressed, etc. So I'm going to drag this over. From the normal, I'm going to drag off and make a slate brush. Now a slate brush is the thing that actually affects the image parameters to where you can set the size, the margin, the tint, the actual image, how you want it drawn, whether you want it like a box, an image, a border, etc. So, but all we need to worry about with this one is we're just going to hook that image straight up, and then that's pretty much all we need for that. Then we'll hook this to the normal and the pressed. Now when the mouse is over a button, we want it to kind of darken to let the player kind of know, yeah, it's registering, this is the item I'm hovering on, that's what I'll click. So off the hovered, we're going to also make a slate brush, and we'll hook that image to it also. But right here you'll see the tint. This will let you set a color overlay on top of the button. So we'll drag off of there, and you don't even have to type anything, you can just make slate color. And this is the overlay that will go over the image. So you can set this specified color to whatever color you like. I'm going to just make it like a gray, make the dark gray even darker. So we'll just slide this over, kind of clean it up. Now we want to set our item's name and the quantity. So we'll drag out the item name and get that. And, oh, no, that's it. Yeah, we'll need that anyway. Drag out the item info and get that. That way we don't have wires crossing over everything. Helps keep everything clean. Drag out the quantity and get that. For the item name, we want to set text. And you want this one that has the little parentheses, because that's the one that lets you affect the widget. So we'll set the text of the text object. Another way you can work with these item info things, you don't have to break them open like that every time. If you don't want to, you can drag off and do a break item. And it kind of works, it kind of functions in the same way. It'll just give you this little list. So if you'd prefer that, there's that way too. So I'll drag off here, and I'm going to set the item name to the first text. And then for the item quantity, we'll set this just like last time. Set it to there. And then that is the current stack. And if you drag off the current stack and just hook it right to it, it automatically adds the converter. So one thing I like about these buttons, or one thing that I like to do with these buttons, is I don't want it to say none and 0. Like if there's nothing in the slot, I don't want it trying to say you have 0 nuns. It's like a broke down Catholic church, I guess, and 0 nuns. So we want... Sorry, I say things sometimes and then realize, what? No, don't say stuff like that. Anyway, so I want to set its visibility based on, is it greater than 0, then show up. So with that text highlighted, I'm going to go all the way down to its behavior in the details panel. Its visibility, we'll bind that to, we'll create a binding. Drag this back a little bit. I'm going to highlight the return node, And a quicker way of duplicating when you're not going to transfer things from blueprint to blueprint, you can just hit Control W and it automatically does. I usually fall into the Control C, Control V thing, but either way works. Then we'll hold B on the keyboard and left click. And that will give us a branch so that we can drag out that item info, break it open one more time, and from the item info current stack, we want to drag off that, and is it greater than 0? So this will find out if the item info associated with this button is greater than 0, and if it is, then it's visible, but if it's not, then it is hidden. So I'm going to save everything real quick. We'll set up the functionality for actually filling this in the next one, but let's go ahead and make it to where our character can open and close their menu. So I'm going to right click the player and open the blueprint. Oh, okay. Then I'm going to find some empty room wherever you want it, and I'm going to right click and call that action event we set up at the very beginning, menu. There it is. Now the first thing you want to check when you press this button is, has the player already opened the menu? So we'll B left click for a branch, untick that condition, and promote the condition to a variable called menu open. Oh, whoa. So remember, the reason I untick it before I set it is because when I compile now, it'll automatically be defaulted to false. You want to make sure that that one is false to begin with. So on false, we want to create a widget. The widget we want to create is that menu that we just set up a little bit ago. Then we will promote that to a variable called menu ref. Then from that we will add it to the viewport. Oh, right. One thing we do need to do is we need to back this up just a little bit and find out if the player has already created this menu widget, because we don't want it to create multiple instances of the same widget. So now that we have this variable, let's drag off the false and type is valid. You want that one with the question mark, because this will check the status of an active variable and see if it already exists. If it does, it'll do something. If it doesn't, we can create it. So we'll take it from the is valid, take it to the is not valid, then we want to create it and set it. So I'll set that down below a little bit, and if it is valid, then we just want to go ahead and add it to the viewport because it already exists. So you want to make sure you drag out that menu reference and set it right there to the input object. Now the next thing you want to think about is when the menu's open, I want to be able to see my mouse. So the way we do that is we'll drag out, or not drag out, we'll right click and type get player controller. This is basically like all the inputs associated with that player controller. So we can drag off and say set show mouse cursor, and that does exactly like it sounds. Now if we tried to use this just like this, then it'll be kind of wonky. The camera is still going to be associated with the mouse movement input, so we also need to set our input mode. So from the get player controller again, drag off, and we will set the input mode to game and UI. This will let the player still run around, but give the mouse UI focus. The widget that we want to focus on right now is our menu reference. And then after we want to do that, or after we do that, we want to set that the menu is now open. So then when we come back and the menu is open, then we want to close it. So we'll drag off our menu reference and we will remove from parent. So now that it would be removed, what this does is it just removes from the parent, which is the viewport where we added it to. Once you add it to the viewport, it becomes a child property of the viewport. So now we'll remove it from the parent. Then we want to reset our input conditions. So we'll get another player controller. And we will set our input mode to game only so that it goes back to the camera as being controlled by the mouse movements. And then we want to set show mouse cursor. We want to set that one back to false so that our mouse is hidden again. It's going to clean that up just a little bit. I don't like when wires are overlapping stuff. Oh, and then once that's done, then you want to make sure that you tell it that the menu is closed again. So we'll drag out our menu open reference and set it back to false. And let's test it real quick. So I'll open it up, and there's my menu, and if I press it again, it's closed. So I can still run around. I can pick up items. They're not showing up in the menu yet, but we'll set up all the under the hood stuff in the next episode. But our menu is open, and we can close it. One thing I like to do personally is I don't like for the game to run full speed while the menu is open. But I also don't like for it to fully stop. So the way we can add this kind of slow motion effect... Dang, this one already 20 minutes. So the way we can add this slow motion effect right here, if you look. Whoa, okay. Let's take a look real quick back in here. So right after we tell it that the menu is open, then we can right click. We want to set the global time dilation. So this will affect the entire time frame of the game based on this number that you put in. So the game normally, its normal time dilation is set to 1. That's normal speed. Everything runs all together. So I'm going to set it to, I want it to run about a quarter speed to a half speed, depending on, what you feel like. I'm going to set mine to 0.25. Now up here we want to set global time dilation one more time. Once we close the menu, we want it to go back to normal speed, so I'm going to set that back to 1. And then compile, save everything. I'll hit play. And then now she's slowed down a little bit. Can make the game a little bit more tactical, like if you're in the middle of combat and you need a potion. We're going to set up some hotkeys for potions and stuff later on, but it'll make it to where I need to use a mana potion real quick. Adds a little bit of tension. It takes and then it doesn't like fully freeze, so you still got to worry about it. Or even you could set it to 0 and then just have her fully freeze. If in Yana. So it all depends on how you want to do it. Oh, look, it's trying to spin still. But yeah, I'm going to set mine to 0.25 though. So, alright, that's it for this one. In the next one, we will set up our menu inventory to actually register what's in our character's inventory and to display it and all that good stuff. So I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.